Tonight we are diving into the summer solstice, also known as Litha in many pagan traditions. So, summer solstice is the peak of the sun's energy, and it is also the longest day and the shortest night of the year. This is a powerful moment in the wheel of the year that's full of fire and celebration and growth. And tonight, I'm going to be sharing with you simple, magical ways you can celebrate Litha season and the summer solstice. Whether you're called to light a candle, gather with friends to celebrate the season, connect with nature, or just simply soak in the solar energy. So, merry meet. I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin, and tonight I'm here talking about ways to celebrate Litha and the summer solstice. So, welcome to those who are joining us live. Merry meet. I see a few already in the chat. Kurt is here, and Andrea and Taliesin. Merry meet, everyone. So, say hi in the chat. Let us know that you are here. Also, leave a heart or a thumbs up somewhere in the video. This will help us get it out to the feed of more people. And if you are here live, especially if you're here live, we will have a Q&A at the end, so you can leave questions and comments in the chat. I'll be watching that as we go. And if you are watching back in replay, you can also leave your questions. I go back after the live, and I'll answer anything I didn't answer during the live feed. So let us dive in. I thought we would start by talking a bit about some lore of the season, especially for those who are celebrating their first Litha. It's always also for those of us who've been on the journey for a while, it's always nice to review and kind of check in about what is the meaning of this season. And a few more joining us. Nancy and Jason are here. Merry meet, everybody. So summer solstice is, as I mentioned in the introduction, it is the longest day and it is also the shortest night. It is the peak of the solar cycle. So in many pagan traditions, we refer to this time of the wheel as Litha. We'll talk a little bit more at the end about what it means to be Litha, to be in Litha season. But this moment of the summer solstice, this is the height of the sun god's power in many pagan traditions. So if you follow the pagan story of the wheel of the year, the goddess gives birth to the sun child at Yule, 6 months on the other side of the wheel. And then during the waxing half of the wheel that goes from Yule until Litha, the goddess grows into the fertile goddess that she will become, and the god goes from being the young sun child to the virile man that he will become as well. And some say that the god and the goddess have union at Beltane, some say at midsummer or Litha. But whether we think it's at Beltane or at Litha, the idea here is that together the god and the goddess are at this kind of peak of their power. The energy is also moving toward a tipping point, which is always something I think is very interesting to contemplate at Litha, because even though our days are hot and very long, and they will get hotter and maybe feel longer, the reality is that from this moment on, the days actually become shorter. This is the longest day of the year, and so everything after this becomes shorter. So it seems, from our perspective, like summer has not even begun yet. But from here on out, the light does begin to wane, and as we move into that waning half of the cycle. Now, this reminds us of the duality of the wheel. We can celebrate the height of the sun's power at the same time we have this acknowledgement of the darker energies around us and the return to that darkness that is inevitable as part of the cycle of the seasons. Now, ancient Celts believed that summer began at Beltane, and this helps to explain why the summer solstice is sometimes called midsummer. So if you kind of think of it from the perspective of the calendar we've adopted now, it seems strange to call it midsummer. We're calling summer solstice the first day of summer, but from the Celtic perspective, it would have been the middle of the summer. Now, lore tells us that the Oak King and the Holly King battle it out here at midsummer and also at midwinter, which is Yule. At Litha, at midsummer, at summer solstice, the Holly King is triumphant, and he is the one who then ushers in the waning half of the year. And then on the flip side of the wheel, at Yule, The Oak King will be triumphant, and then he will usher in the waxing half of the year. Now, Litha is also associated with the Fae and other nature spirits. And when we get in further, we're going to be talking about different ways that you can celebrate Beltane. We'll be going into more detail about who the Fae are, how you can work with them. But they are especially active at this time. It's not unusual to see them in places or sense them. Our ancient ancestors also celebrated this time with bonfires, with dancing, with feasting. So it's a heightened time of joy and merriment. People may also work with herbs and flowers. So herbal and flower magic is particularly aligned with the energy of this time. Now, one of the things to remember about all of the solstices and the equinoxes, and for that matter, all the cross quarter days, all the Sabbats really, is that the dates vary year to year. So every summer solstice will generally fall between the 20th and the 22nd of June if you are in the northern hemisphere. In this year, 2025, the summer solstice will hit its peak this Friday, June 20th. And let's see, the time is at 7:41 p.m. Pacific, 10:41 p.m. Eastern. So if you really want to tap into the energy, that could be a good time to celebrate, and that would be the very height of the sun's peaked power. Now, it's also important to, I believe it's important to also consider where the lunar cycle is at any given Sabbath. So last year, the summer solstice and the full moon fell at nearly the same time. So the two energies of the lunar cycle and the solar cycle were kind of on the same vibration, and they compounded one another. But this year, the summer solstice, which is the peak of the solar energy, and when we look at the lunar cycle that is also going on at that same time, we will find ourselves in the last quarter in the waning crescent moon. So what that can mean, some people may not even notice this kind of energy conflict. But if you do feel a little conflicting energy inside of you, it can be explained by this. We have the solar cycle at the peak of its power, and we have the lunar cycle winding down to the lowest point of its power. So if you kind of feel or sense those conflicting energies, or like in some ways you feel like turning inward, which would be more what's going on with the lunar cycle, and then maybe another part of you feels like being outward and celebrating in the heat and the joy and everything, which is more linked to the solar cycle where we are right now. Just know that it's good to acknowledge this duality within us, acknowledge the conflicting energies within us, and also know it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Okay, because the two, to me, it's always important to look at where these two energies are and how they might affect us, and how one Litha and one summer solstice can look different from year to year because of what the lunar cycle is doing as well. So a couple more who are joining us. Mary Meet Anthony's here, and Amy, Chelsea, and then Andrea said it explains a lot. So you must be feeling some of that conflicting energy. Yeah, so I always want to talk about that just to normalize it, because sometimes people will feel like, oh, I should be, feeling one way because the solar energy is doing this, but maybe you're feeling a different way. So I always want to look at lunar energy too. Okay, so why don't we now shift over into ways to celebrate? We'll spend the rest of the episode talking about how to celebrate the the summer solstice and Litha season in general. And before I go further, and I will talk about this again at the end, just remember that every Sabbath ushers in a seasonal energy that is with us for approximately 4 to 5 weeks before it starts to transition into the energy of the next Sabbath. So what that means, there's a lot of things on my list. And for the overachievers out there, you do not have to pack them all into one day. You don't have to do this all on Friday. You have a whole entire season of energy, of time that you can do some of these activities. Okay, so let us start with solar magic. And as I do this, as we go through the different ways, I also encourage you and invite you to share different ways that you celebrate. So if you've done any of the things that I'm going to talk about, let us know how it goes for you, or how it went for you, or how it has gone for you, I guess I should say. And then if there's ideas that you have that I don't talk about, we would love to hear about those as well, because my list is not going to be exhaustive tonight. Okay, so talking about ways to celebrate solar magic. So this should be pretty obvious, right? We're at the peak of the sun's energy, so tapping into solar energy is a profound and powerful way to work with the energy of the summer solstice. So one thing that you can do is you can draw down the sun. So I usually only talk about this at summer solstice, and maybe we should talk about it more often, right? Because summer solstice isn't the only time that we can work with solar energy or draw down the sun. We talk a lot more about drawing down the moon. For anybody who doesn't know what drawing down the moon is, it's typically done on a full moon. Person will stand somewhere where they have the moonlight falling on them. Many times they will open their arms up to the sky and imagine drawing down the lunar energy into your body. Sometimes people will also draw down a lunar goddess in particular at that time as well, like Artemis or Selene, or some goddess who's connected to the moon. So that's often a part of many full moon rituals or esbats. But we don't talk as much about the drawing down the sun. And we do it in the same way, we just do it in the sun. So you would stand somewhere where you could feel the warmth and the heat of the sun on you. You might lift up your arms as well, and you imagine drawing down the energy of the sun into you. So sometimes people will like to link that to their breath. So you can kind of close your eyes, and then you can imagine, with every inhale, you're drawing that energy down into you, and with every exhale, maybe you're dispersing it out into the world. It's joyful, it's celebratory, it's very positive energy. And in a world that's desperately hurting right now, it could be nice to kind of direct that energy into other places. But you can also just simply draw the energy into you and hold it there. And just like with the drawing down of the moon, with drawing down the sun, you can also draw a solar deity into you, like Amaterasu or Helios or any other solar deity that you desire. Another practice that you can do. Oh, and before I forget, because sometimes I pull these books to the side and then the episode's over and I forget to even show them. This is a book by Stephanie Woodfield. It's called Drawing Down the Sun. And so if you're somebody who's really maybe you work a lot with lunar energy and you're not as well versed with solar energy, this could be a good book for you to check out. It says rekindle the magic of the solar goddesses. So it is goddess heavy. But I think that I really enjoyed this book. There's a lot of ideas in it. There's some spells, there's some ritual ideas, and just the lore of the sun across different cultures. So consider checking that out, especially if you're building your magical library, or maybe you want to tap into the energy of the solar cycle at this time, because we're at summer solstice. Now, other things that we can do with the sun is, I have this teacher who she talked about, and I've heard this from a couple of different people. There's a lot of openings in the back of the neck when it comes to our psychic awareness, our intuition, and just the way that we take in energy. And so I have this teacher who said to stand outside, and if you have hair, like long hair, you want to move your hair out of the way so that the sun can fall on the nape of your neck. And she talks about just letting the sun kind of fall on the back of your neck for a couple of minutes as you breathe in and out. And it's a way to intake some of that solar energy. So I really love that practice. And especially if you're feeling kind of down, it can be a good way to energize yourself and kind of bring more of that positivity into your being. Other things that you can do with the solar energy is charging things in the sun. So we do a lot of charging in the moon. We do a lot of moon water. We do a lot of charging crystals, but you could do the same things with the sun. So you can make solar water by placing some water out in the sun. You can put different things in it, like stones. So it is important, if you're going to do solar, and I guess for that matter, putting stones in water. You want to make sure that the stones that you're using are going to be water safe. But if you're just sitting them out in the sun, you also want to make sure they're going to be solar safe. So some that are definitely sun safe are citrine, carnelian, and quartz, but it's not an exhaustive list. With solar water, you can place stones in it as well to infuse the water with the energy of the crystals, but you can also infuse solar water with herbs. So we're going to talk a little bit later. We'll go into more, little bit more depth about working with herbs and flowers at summer solstice. But at least here, if you're going to make some solar water and you want to infuse it with herbs, you could consider basil, oregano, marigold. These are all good herbs that are connected to the sun, calendula, and St. John's wort. So see how much you can get out in the sun. I know that there are people who are sun averse. I'm that way myself, though I shocked myself on Saturday when I was out for 5 hours in the sun and only got this tiny little patch on my nose burned a little bit. So I didn't really use a lot of sunscreen either, but I was smart about the way I used my shade, I guess. And but even if you're sun averse like me, just trying to get out there for a few minutes can really do your body good. It's good for vitamin D. It's good for so much physically, but when it comes to connecting to the magic of summer solstice, it can also be a great magical practice. So, all right, so let's talk about the next thing. Let's see here. I'm just going back to the chat. Sonia said, I've learned to definitely align with the lunar cycles. Yeah, and I would say that I am very aligned with the lunar cycles as well. And like being a kind of sun averse, I do have to force myself out into the sun sometimes. But I find it interesting to work with the solar cycles, especially because I'm more comfortable with the lunar. And then sometimes getting out into, where we're less comfortable can be interesting, right? A way to change our energy. See, and then Taliesin said I've been conflicted about being active and also about being quiet. Yeah, so it's definitely definitely a conflicting energy that some people are feeling. Kurt said the best time of year to do outside rituals at midnight. I think it's the best time of the year to do outside rituals in general. Though I'm not sure. I'm not sure I would say best time because I think any rituals throughout the summer are very good for doing rituals. But and just a note on the time as well. The summer solstice is actually connected to noon. So the time most aligned to a ritual for summer solstice would be at the height of the sun's power around noon. Taliesin said, oh, good. Taliesin said, amethyst, rose quartz, and fluorite don't put in the sun. And when I said quartz, I should have been clearer that I meant clear quartz. Yeah. Okay. Amy says the weather there has not been sun friendly, and a friend in Boston told me it had been raining for like 13 straight Sundays or something like, or 13 straight weekends. So some parts of the country are not, the weather is not cooperating, and it doesn't really probably feel like the summer solstice is coming our way. Sonia said getting in the sun and doing shadow puppets, yeah, is a way to connect to do some shadow work, and that's the way I didn't even put that one on my list. That's a good one. Great suggestions. That's why I always love these lives too, because we get good suggestions from everybody in the chat. Okay, so let us go on now to the next idea. So the next idea is the seasonal feast. We often will think about feasting at some of the Sabbats later in the wheel of the year. So we think a lot about it at Mabon, right? Mabon is often called the witch's Thanksgiving. Lunaza has a very heavy kind of feast element to it, a lot of bread and grains and things like that. Even Samhain, right? We may do a dumb supper at Samhain. So there seems to be like a lot of feasting at some of those later Sabbats in the wheel of the year. But summer solstice is a great time to do a feast. So choose foods that reflect the colors or the energies that you want to draw in, or the colors or the energies of the season. Honey is always a great ingredient for foods at the summer solstice. Honey has the connection to abundance and also to sweetness. So honey can be used in spells, and remember, food can be spells. Anything we make with intention is a spell. But if you want to sweeten yourself up, maybe you've been in a bad mood or something, or you want to sweeten somebody else up, cooking with honey and then infusing it with that intention of sweetness can be very good and very aligned to the summer solstice. Lemon, orange, citrus of any kind is connected to the solar energy in general. Berries are connected to fertility and joy, and so they can be a good element to bring into your feast. Corn, tomatoes, fresh herbs. So like anything that's fresh, that's being harvested right now out of your garden or at your farmer's market. Any of these would be great ingredients to use. Mead, again, with that connection to honey, mead is very connected to the summer solstice. Sun tea, herbal infusions. Again, like you can use herbs at any solstice, or sorry, at any Sabbath, but at the summer solstice at Litha, herbs are particularly aligned. So anytime that you can bring in herbs into any of your magic at summer solstice, it's good. It doesn't mean you have to, but it's just further aligning different energies together. So, has anybody ever done a big summer solstice feast before? I personally haven't. Our coven is mostly done feasts at, like, we've done dumb suppers. We will very often, our in-person group will do like the Thanksgiving for Mabon. We've done a lot of work with food at Lunaza, but not as much at Litha. So we'd love to hear if anybody has done any feasts. You can celebrate with your friends, right? Um, let's see. Taliesin said making Litha honey cakes. Said hopes I won't create a flaming, burning solar wheel. Yeah, Litha honey cakes are excellent to make. Chelsea said making a big, huge salad full of fresh herbs, fruits, and vegetables at Litha every year. Yes, it's a great time of year for just all of that, all the fresh foods that are available, and just eating so close to like this, close to the land, right? Like that's why I love like farmers markets at this time of year. Very good. And Anthony said, weather Massachusetts has been terrible. Yeah, that's what my friend had said too. Okay, so next idea, love magic. So don't ever forget about, sometimes people just discount this one. They're like, I'm not interested in love or looking for love or strengthening love or anything like that. But remember, self-love. And everybody, I've rarely met a person who couldn't use some extra self-love. So love is the theme of the season. It's no coincidence that love was the theme of Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. And for anybody who remembers that story, right, there's all kinds of love potions and fairies and people falling in and out of love and magic that makes people fall in love or makes them fall out of love. So it's not just us as modern witches who connect love magic to this time of the year. It goes back, even past beyond Shakespeare's time. So things that you can do at this time, a lot of different ways to work with love magic. You can cast a spell to attract a love interest. You could cast a spell to attract a specific person. I personally like love spells that open both us up to what we have to offer as well as what we are looking for in a partner. So one of my favorite love spells that has worked very positively for me is I usually take a pink candle or red and maybe carve sigils into it or write intentions. I might infuse it with oils. I might roll it in some crushed herbs. But then usually what I do is I spend some time in contemplation, writing down a list of all of the qualities. And I should say I'm saying this as though it's like present. I've done this in the past, but writing down all of the qualities that I have to offer in a relationship. And then on another piece of paper, writing down all of the things that I'm looking for in a partner. And then on a third sheet of paper, writing down all the things that I'd want to do together in that relationship. And spending that time to really kind of create that intention to draw a person who's right for you. And then you can choose to do what you want with the lists of paper. I usually recommend putting them underneath your mattress or put them somewhere safe, tuck them away in a book of shadows or something like that. And then you can burn down your candle all the way. So that's just a generic spell to just attract a partner. Now, other spell, like other love magic that you can do at this time is self-love. So self-love spells are excellent. I think self-love spells should usually start the process of looking for, like if you are deciding that you're looking for a partner, I think a self-love spell is always wise to do first. So that you come from a place where you're already loving yourself, or you're at least working on that, so that you're more open to the love and the abundance of the universe. Making love elixirs is also fun to do. You can make them for someone else and give them to someone else, or you can drink them yourself. Infusing water with Damiana, or making Damiana tea. Damiana is known to be a very good aphrodisiac, and so it can be good in love elixirs. But other things to just kind of remember when it comes to love magic is that it doesn't all have to be about the spells, and especially when it comes to self-love magic. So think about how you can pamper yourself, get a massage, treat yourself to something nice. The other thing that I think is nice, is fun and worth mentioning is that this Litha, this summer solstice, or the start of Litha season, is on Friday. Friday is the day aligned with Venus and Freya and some of the other love goddesses. And so it's an excellent time to be doing love magic. So even if that's not the intention of your summer solstice ritual or working, it could be good to just honor yourself, during that ritual, and maybe say something that you love about yourself if that's hard for you. So let's see. Next up, we are going to talk about more. We're going to go back to talking more about some herbs. So, herb harvesting and blessing is also a really great activity for summer solstice. So, if you have planted any herbs and they are ready to be harvested, summer solstice or anytime during Litha season, but especially summer solstice, is a very good time to harvest those herbs. It's a great time in general just to be working with herbs and flowers in general. You can make tinctures and herbal sachets. You can dress candles, like I was talking about earlier with the love candle, like dressing it with oils and then rolling it in herbs. Any spell work that you are doing, if you're maybe even if you're somebody who doesn't normally work with herbs, herbs are so aligned to the energy of the season. So bringing herbal magic into whatever working you're doing, even if it's just a little bit, kind of helps you align to that energy. Some herbs that are great to work with, especially at summer solstice: St. John's wort, like some of these I mentioned earlier, chamomile, calendula, lavender, mugwort, and verbena. St. John's wort is particularly connected to summer solstice. It's a great herb for protection, and it's a great herb that's aligned to solar energy. Mugwort is one of my favorites for divination and dream work. I like to work with it looks like a sage bundle, but it's made of mugwort, and then you can burn that and kind of burn it and do some smoke cleansing of your space with that mugwort bundle. But it's also good to kind of breathe in some of that smoke a little bit, and it can help you with your divination. It helps to thin the veils a little bit. I think it helps to sometimes the that space in between the veils, it can be hard to pass through, and we need to slightly be able to pass in between the veils in order to really connect sometimes to deities and spirits around us, and even our own higher self, and to work with our divination. And so an herb like mugwort thins the veils just a tiny bit, makes it a little bit easier for you to access the etheric plane, which is where all of our magic is taking place. Another great herb for summer solstice is rosemary. Rosemary connects to purification, to the intention of purification. So that's also a really nice one. Now, many of these herbs that I mentioned are herbs that the ancient Druids would use in some of their ceremonial midsummer fires. So you can also toss, if you build a fire, for example, and maybe you have space where you can build a bonfire, even if you make a little fire in your cauldron, you can toss some of the herbs in as offerings in your own ceremonial fire. This is also a great time to connect with plant allies and spirits. And this also goes for flower spirits as well. So I like to tell this story around midsummer, but going back many, probably quite some years ago, about 10 years ago, I think, maybe not quite that long ago, but I was at PantheaCon, which is this convention up in San Jose that sadly no longer exists. But at the height of it all, the big names like Starhawk and Christopher Penczak would show up there, and I remember taking a class with Christopher Penczak on flower magic, and he did this whole exercise kind of meditation where we connected to a flower, and you just pretty much you close your eyes and you kind of invite in the essence of some kind of flower and you see what shows up. And for me it was strawberry, and I remember that year and being surprised because it wasn't one I was a flower that I would particularly think of, but it was the strawberry flower that connected to me. It was a very profound meditation. So something you can try, right? And even just sitting near flowers or sitting near plants and closing your eyes and just breathing in and out there, seeing if you can breathe in and out in tune with the energy of the plant. Ask the plant if it has any wisdom for you. Ask it if it needs anything. Sometimes it needs water or food or something like that. And you can also ask it for aid in any intentions that you have. So that was really, like, to me, it was a really, really fun and interesting experience to have that communion with the strawberry flower plant. So I like to bring that up in case you would like to try to commune with a flower or another plant at this time as well. The other thing I should mention here, and I'll probably, we're going to talk about fairies in just a little bit, but sometimes we think of the veils as only thinning at around Samhain, or if you follow me, I will say that the veils tend to thin, from Samhain to Yule. That's kind of the space in between time and space. But the flip side of the wheel at Beltane, between Beltane and Litha, the veils are also thinner. So on this side of the wheel, it's more about more life and spirits coming into the earth, into this plane, as opposed to the other side of the wheel when it's more spirits that are exiting this plane. But this thinning of the veils is going to make it easier to connect to some of these nature spirits. This is why it's going to be easier to see the fae, easier to see elementals maybe at this time, or other nature spirits out when you're walking or hiking, or like I'm talking here about being able to commune with plant energies and the spirits of plants or flowers. And so if you are somebody who finds it hard to commune with spirits and energies around you, you may try to do it at this time and you may find it a little bit easier. All right, so I'm just going to check on the chat here for just a second. Okay. Tell you, since it's sitting under a tree with your back along the trunk and meditate is so powerful. It was an exercise that Scott Cunningham Instagram had. Yeah, and that's yeah, I didn't have that written in to talk about that exercise, but I love that exercise as well. So it doesn't just have to be plant like flowers or plants. You can also commune with trees at this time. And so sitting with your back against a tree can be so powerful, and breathing in and out and in trying to connect your breathing in tune with that tree. And you can also do the grounding tree meditation while you're there. But yeah, it's just a great time to be communing with nature in general and in all the different ways that we can do it. Okay, bonfire ceremony. So it is a fire festival. So Litha is definitely like Beltane, a fire festival. A bonfire ceremony can help us honor the energy of the sun and the power of the sun. And if you can't have a bonfire, you can just light candles. Any way that you can create fire in your space is going to count here. So things that you can do is you could simply just meditate with the fire. So you could do some candle gazing if you're using candles, or fire gazing if you are building an actual bonfire. You can also write intentions on pieces of paper, affirmations, or things that you would like to release. And you can write them on slips of paper, and then you can offer them to the fire. or say them out loud if you would like. That activates your throat chakra and helps you to, really connect to that power of creation, manifestation, and then offer those slips of paper to the fire. You can dance around the fire. You can move, do some intuitive movement around the fire to raise energy. But fire in general is just a great thing to bring into your rituals at the summer solstice because, again, it connects you to that solar energy, which is what this Sabbath is all about. So I personally think that at a time like Litha season, summer solstice, I like to light as many candles as possible. I like to do fire magic when I can. I don't really have I don't have a space to build a big bonfire, but I do have one of those. It's called the Celestial Cauldron from Home Depot. And so I can build a small fire in there. And so Beltane, if I'm going to build fires in there, I'll do it at Samhain, of course, probably, but I like to do it at Midsummer as well. Does anybody build does anybody build like a big bonfire for Litha, for summer solstice, or have space for something like that? In Southern California, we always have to be very careful about the way that we work with fire because it's so dry here and we start to move into fire season as we move into the hot summer. But if we find ways to maintain safe fires, even here we can have them. Okay, so let us talk about fairies. So fairy magic is a big thing that many people like to do at Litha summer solstice. Like I mentioned earlier, the veils begin to thin around Beltane. They stay thin all the way to Litha. Very similar in the way that they are at Samhain, but it's more about the life coming into this plane than it is about life going out. But what it means is when the veil is thin, it's easier for you to commune with spirits around you. So it's easier for you to commune with the fairies. So what I would suggest is you want to work with fairies is to start by leaving them offerings. They like shiny things, coins, bells, jewelry, trinkets, different things that shine glitter. And Beth, the maiden of our coven, she's done a lot of work with fairies, and she always talks about making fairy jars at Beltane or at Litha. And in a fairy jar, essentially, like she likes to use like the small little tiny mason jars that they're probably like 3 ounces or something like that, but you could use something bigger if you wanted. And then she says to fill it with shiny things, so glitter, trinkets, jewelry, all the things I was talking about before. The idea behind this is that fairies like those shiny things. They like to collect those shiny things. And if you leave the offering of this jar to them, they are less likely to collect those things from you in various places of your home. So we always talk about from Beltane to Litha, fairy season in our house, be careful where your keys are. Make sure you know where they are. If you leave them in an unusual place, they may not be there the next time you look for them. And then they may be back at some point. So the fairies have kind of this way of moving things around. Jewelry might disappear and then reappear in different places. Fairies will tend to kind of rile up cats. This can happen with any house pets, but especially cats. They seem to get some cats will all of a sudden be staring at things that aren't there. I talked a lot about this at Beltane as well, but we're still experiencing that energy at Litha, so it's worth talking about here. But to sort of not only to honor the fairies, but also to prevent them from causing some of that hectic kind of chaos in your house, leaving them that jar, like Beth suggests, is a really good idea. She likes to leave the little jars near doorways or windows. But if you have a space in your yard where you know there's fairy activity, you can also leave it there as an offering. My house, I've probably mentioned this last Litha as well, has a tree that has a natural fairy door opening at the bottom of it. And so I do not see the fairies myself, but I sense their presence. And so I leave them offerings. They like sand from the beach when I go on the full moon. In particular, they like sand that was collected while the circle was still cast. So I've done this before where I've cast the circle, I kind of forgot to gather the sand, and then I opened the circle, and I just got this sense that they didn't want the sand that I had collected. So where I'm going with all of this is sometimes, there's general offerings like we're talking about here, shiny trinkets, things like that, but also just listening to them. What would you like? It can be unusual things like the sand. I wouldn't have it's not sand from the beach during a ritual isn't on the list of usual fairy offerings, but I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't been really trying to key in and listen to what they wanted. There's something else I was going to mention about fairies, but now I'm forgetting. But anyway, fairy magic of any kind, fairy offerings, just a good time of year to connect with them. I think that this is also a really great way to have your kids, like if you're a pagan parent who is raising your kids pagan in some way, whether it's all the way or with some practices, fairy magic can be a good way to invite your kids into the practice, have them help you give the offerings, help you make have them help you make the jars, things like that. I know what I was going to mention though. I was talking to a good friend last night, and he told me this story of seeing fairies somewhere in, I want to say Vermont. He was in Vermont, I'm pretty sure is where he said. And he said he was walking along and he saw this tree, and the tree had these pillars of light, these thin pillars of light, and some were very tall, like they'd be almost the height of the tree, and some were smaller. And he got the sense that they were fairies. And he ended up talking to a witch who he works with at Harvard. And that witch also told him that it is a common way that people report seeing fairies. So not everybody sees fairies like Tinkerbell. In fact, I would probably say more people don't see them in that way than do see them. Like I've said, I don't see them myself, but I sense them. But my friend saw them, as these pillars of light. So why I'm telling you all of this is that sometimes we discount the things that are in our periphery. We discount the signs and things around us because we have an expectation of how it should look. So if you think it should look like Tinkerbell and you don't see Tinkerbell, then you're going to think you didn't see any fairies. My friend would have just discounted that experience. But he had the sense that they were fairies, and he talked to someone he considered an expert who then validated the experience. So just see, when you go out and let's say you kind of want to open yourself up to fairies, really open yourself up to however they may present themselves, even if it isn't through the physical eyes or the sense of sight. Anybody who's ever had experience with fairies, let us know. And let's see. So you said, my druid friends have a place we do bonfires on occasion, usually Beltane. Yeah, and then you can also do them. Beltane is probably your typical time to be doing the bonfires. But Litha is also a good time. Anthony said that's what must be happening to his wife's jewelry. Well, especially at this time of the year, I wouldn't discount it. Yeah. Honey, yes, honey is a good offering. Honey is a nice offering for many deities as well, but nature spirits will be happy with that, and fairies as well. Sonia said, I'm making a fey tray at the moment. What is a fey tray? I would love to hear. Amy said, when I had a security camera in my kitchen, I watched my cat chasing a fairy on camera one night. Yeah, it's really interesting when they're chasing them too. Mine get really into it. They haven't been doing it much lately, but sometimes they really are into it, and they'll be staring at something in the mirror and then shoot across the house. And now, did you actually on the camera? Did you actually see the fairy, or did you see your cat just chasing something there? Very interesting. Okay, I'm going to keep us moving along. So next idea is divination. So as we mentioned, the veils are a bit thinner at this time of the year. So trying a form of divination, especially one that you've never done before, can be especially good. Crystal ball gazing, for example, reading tea leaves, something you've never tried before. Like if you're always somebody who does tarot, try runes or try witches' runes. I would recommend, if you, especially if divination, if you're newer to divination or you're trying a new divination for the first time, starting with a bit of breath work and some meditation can help you get yourself into alpha state, which is the state that you want to be in so that you're more receptive to anything that's coming through. I would also recommend, uh, gosh, now I'm forgetting what I was going to say. um, Starting with your breath work and your meditation, and trying to be as open as you can. So like if you're feeling like tired, for example, if you're feeling kind of lower energy because of where we are with the lunar cycle, you should honor that and acknowledge that, and also remember that, let's say, you don't necessarily have to be doing the divination on midsummer, on summer solstice. You can do it any time during Litha season. Um, but getting more into that receptive state can really help you. I personally like using cards most of the time, but when it comes to like a time when the veils are thinner, this is where I will get out like my pendulum a little bit more. Maybe I'll do some automatic writing or try a different form of divination that I've never done. Like I've never really tried tea leaf reading before, so that would be a good idea, to try one that you've never tried before. So, divination is something that you can do an entire ritual around the divination, but you can also have it be a smaller part of a larger ritual as well. Oh, I know what I was going to mention is, I knew I was missing something, was circling back to that idea of mugwort. So mugwort is a particularly good herb that can be good for thinning the veils a bit and can be good for setting the kind of the stage for some divination practice. So consider getting mugwort. I buy it locally here, but you can get it if you can't find it. You can get it at Rose Mountain Herbs, or is it Mountain Rose Herbs? I think it's Mountain Rose Herbs. Okay, next idea is wand making. Okay, so wand making. Wands are associated with the element of fire, and it makes it a particularly good activity to be doing at summer solstice. And I think this is another really nice activity to do with kids. So if you're a pagan parent trying to bring some of these ideas in for your kids, for wand making, it's a great way to tap into the solar energy around you. So what I usually do is I go out and I find a stick and I search for a while. I try to find one that really feels nice in my hand. And then from there's a lot of things that you can do. It depends on how crafty you are, how good you are. If you wanted to carve the wand, you could. If you wanted to sand it down and you could put some kind of a natural oil finish on it, you could. A lot of times I just leave mine unfinished, but I draw sigils or different runes into it. You can attach a crystal to one end and you can wrap it with wire to hold it in place or glue it in place if you want. I like to, on the end where I'm going to hold the wand, I like to wrap it with some kind of cord of some kind to make a natural handle for myself. But there's a lot you can do, and if you know particularly where the wood is coming from, so maybe it's from your own yard or it's in a place where you know what kind of tree it is, you can also choose a type of wood that is aligned with the intention that you might have. So every wood has a little bit of a different intention. Now sometimes maybe you can't really pick or choose the wood. It's just this is the one that you found, and maybe you don't even know what tree it comes from, and that's okay too. But if you do know the tree, you can do a little research on the different types of woods and the different energies that they create. Some people like to use wands in place of an athame. So you could cast a circle with a wand. I like to think of a wand as kind of an extension of my hand and using it to direct energy. So maybe if I was going to charge something in a ritual, I might use the wand to help direct energy like that. But other people use it in place of an athame. But it's just a really nice activity to make them. In our in-person coven, we've done it a couple of times where I've gone out and gathered, and Beth has done this too. We've gone out and gathered a bunch of sticks, and then we let people choose their stick, and then we have We just spend time making the wands together. Has anybody ever made their own wand before? Can be a really fun activity. Um, yeah, Kurt said the Fae will get you and hide stuff. Yeah, they are, can be little tricksters. Yeah, which is again why being careful of where your keys are is important. Okay, so going back to Amy seeing the fairy on the camera, she said, yes, I saw the fairy and the cat jump from the counter on one side of the kitchen to the other. Yes, there's sometimes like these big erratic movements the cats will do. Anthony says he loves candle divination. Yeah, and then that's another, I didn't mention candle divination, but going back to the idea of divination, candle divination can be a little like crystal ball divination. So we use the ball, or we use the candle as the medium through which the messages come. And so sometimes the messages will come through, kind of watching the candle flame, closing your eyes, and sometimes symbols will appear for people, or they may see scenes or objects or things like that. Or sometimes it can just bring thoughts to our mind. So it is important anytime that we're doing divination, that's not with like cards where we specifically have a picture to look at. It's important for us to be really open to all of our senses, everything that's coming through, because divinatory messages don't just have to come through through the eyes, through the sense of sight. Oh, and then Sonia, she had said her fey tray. She said a little resting place with moss, trinkets, dried flowers, and a candle with a lid. Oh, that's cute. Very cool. Neat. That's like a neat summer solstice activity. Said River made one wrapped with gold twine and a crystal at the top and a witchy sticker at the bottom. That's cute. Cool. I think maybe you meant I've made one. Yeah, very cool. Cool. Okay, so oh right. Amy asked if there are any workshops on candle divination. No, but I could definitely add it to the list, and we could do an episode on it. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the next idea, is making a summer solstice altar. So I always want to talk about how we could make an altar if we wanted to make an altar. So remember, there's a couple of different ways to make your altar. So one way is if you already have an altar, like I have the main working altar back here. You can take symbols of the Sabbath, you could place them on the altar, and that can be a way to bring in the energy of that Sabbath season. But some people like to set up a temporary altar that is just aligned for that season. So you can do that as well. So there are temporary altars that can stay up the entire season. So you could have it, maybe you could put up an altar, you decorate it for Litha. Then as you get closer to Lanaza, then you swap it out and you change it for that Sabbath. But you can also set up temporary altars that are very temporary, that you're only setting up for that ritual, or that working of that day. Things that you can add to your altar, anything connected to the Fae, fairy statues, flowers, flower crowns, solar images, candles. The colors that are most aligned to this Sabbath are gold, yellow, green, orange, and brown. And so you could get altar cloths of these colors, or incorporate these colors into your altar space through candles, different things like that. And when you are setting up your altar, you might also decide at that time that you want to work with a deity that's connected to the summer solstice. So you might then add things to that altar, or offerings on that altar for that specific deity. So deities that are connected to this time of the year, when it comes to the archetypes or deity archetypes, this is the solar or the grain god. This is, the god at the peak of his power, and then also the mother goddess. And the goddess is moved from her role as the maiden, and she's fully the mother at the height of her power. The specific deities that you could work with at this time: Thor, Frigga, Freya, Frey, Odin, Osiris, Helios, I mentioned earlier, Isis, Apollo, Artemis, Amaterasu. Our coven and our Shadow Seekers group is going to be working with Artemis. because we're going to be working with animal spirits at our summer solstice. But the exist is definitely not exhaustive, and you can always, any patron deity you have, can be worked with at any Sabbath as well. But if you are looking for deities particularly connected to solstice or summer solstice, this is a good list. A few other things to mention before we go to the Q&A, just some other ideas: taking nature hikes, getting out in nature, communing with nature, lean your back against a tree like we mentioned, sunrise or a sunset ritual. So you'll see that at Stonehenge, they will do a sunrise ritual at midsummer and at midwinter, at Yule and at Litha. And some covens I believe at the Stonehenge in the United States, I'm pretty sure that they will do a sunrise solar, uh, a sunrise summer solstice ritual as well. Wildflower crown making. We didn't talk about that as an idea, so that's a good craft with kids, but also anybody can enjoy making a flower crown. Animal guides. So like just as we can work with flowers and animals and plant spirits, we can also work with animal spirits at this time. Summer solstice at the peak of the sun's power. It's all about nature. So all the spirits in nature, including the animal spirits, are good ones to kind of work with. So if maybe you've never found your animal guide, or maybe you have this inkling of one that you know about, but you haven't really explored it very deeply. So summer solstice could be a good time to do that. And then, so an idea that is a little off the beaten path, but I've seen a lot of covens do this, and our coven personally has done it a lot at summer solstice, is social justice. So our coven has done several rituals on social justice at summer solstice. In fact, Starhawk herself, she's going to be doing one on Friday, and you can look it up if you'd like. It's through her Earth Activist Training Network, and she herself will be leading it online, and through a donation of any amount, you can join if you want. So those are some ideas. Again, it's important to remember, these are not the only ideas. These are just some ideas. Before I forget, I wanted to show you a couple of books. So this particular book by Adaine McCoy, this is the Sabbaths book, and I really love this book because it goes through every single Sabbath. It gives you ideas for recipes, rituals, some lore. There might be, there's also at the end of it, like here, I open it up and there's actually this is for Yule, but there's a counted cross stitch pattern if you wanted to make a Yule wreath. So there's a lot of stuff in here. There's correspondence lists at the end for every Sabbath, deities, colors, herbs, like all of it. So just a really, really nice book. So this is Adaine McCoy, The Sabbats. And then from the Llewellyn Sabbath series, this is the Midsummer book, and this one is by Anna Franklin. Okay, and so this one is a similar idea. It has recipes, it has rituals, it has solitary rituals and group rituals, it has spell work, it has craft ideas, recipes. I probably already mentioned that, herbal ideas, and it just obviously it goes into more detail because it's a book specifically just about this one Sabbath. So I like these. I bought them very slowly over a couple of years and eventually have the entire series, but definitely recommend. Okay. Also want you to remember, we talked about a lot of things tonight, and you do not need to feel the pressure of including all of this into your celebrations. Find the ones that resonate the most with you, but also remember that it is a seasonal energy. So as soon as summer solstice comes on Friday and goes, it doesn't mean it's over and you missed it. You got a whole season to work with this energy. So see, if there's several on this list of ideas tonight that you liked, spread them out over the time. Invite friends and kids and other people to celebrate with you too in some of the activities, and just really tap into the energy of the season. All right, so I am going to open it up for the Q&A. I actually have a couple of questions that were left for me this week, so I'm going to go into those first. But if you are live and you've got some questions, put them in the chat. They don't have to be about shadow work, or they don't have to be about summer solstice or Litha. They can be about anything related to shadow work, energy work, or witchcraft. Okay, so the first question is from Anthony, and I think he's with us. He is with us live, yes. So he said, how can I get back into doing things or get back on track with his magical practice? He said he's started doing some small rituals. So absolutely, the starting of the small rituals is a great step back. So I just have some thoughts I wanted to share, with Anthony and with anybody else who's struggling with this, because we fall in and out of our magical practice. So the first thing I want to make sure that everybody knows is that it's natural. And so if you have any guilt, if you're feeling any guilt about falling away from your practice, it's really in your best interest to try to release that if you can. As we come to the dark moon early next week, it would be a good time to let go of any of that guilt, because the guilt is just holding us back from stepping forward. The important thing is that we're back on the path, right? So doing the small practices is great. I think that it's also like if you, for anybody who ever falls off, taking the pressure off of yourself, find the practices that are the easiest ones to come back to. Don't pick the practices that are harder or they take more work or you have some resistance to. You can tackle all that later once you're back and you're back on the path and you're back on track. But at first, be gentle, be easy, and do the small practices that are easy to implement, even if they're just a couple of minutes a day. The important thing is the consistency. So consistency does not mean it has to be done every day. I tell people like a nearly daily practice, it leaves you room to skip a few days and still be successful at your goal. So 5 to 6 days is great. And if you do that, you practice just a couple of minutes a day for 5 to 6 days, and you do that for a couple of weeks or a lunar cycle, you're going to change, a lot about the way you feel. Also, it's important to remember that there is an ebb and a flow to our spiritual path and to our healing work. And there's a lot of things in the world that pull us away from our practice. And that doesn't mean we need to ignore the world, but we do need to give ourselves some grace. And so, if there's upsetting things happening around you, whether it's personal things or more like global things, give yourself that grace. Like going through a hard time, right? We shouldn't be expected to be on our game at all times, right? So there is this ebb and this flow to the way that our spiritual energy works. And so if you recognize that and you honor that, and you really truly think about the duality of the wheel, right? We go up to the peak of power and then we go back down, and there's beauty in all parts of it. So sometimes we step away from the practice and then we come back and it's even better than it was before. I certainly know this with my yoga practice. Like sometimes I'd feel guilty about being away from my yoga practice, and I think that, oh my God, I'm undoing everything I had done. And no, and when I would come back, I would actually, after a few days, I'm back and I'm better than I ever was. So I think the same can happen with magical practice. So just be gentle with yourself. Start with the small practices, keep it consistent, and you will see over time it will just build into the bigger practice that you're used to. So hopefully that helps. Here's a couple of questions from Sam. Sam said, how can I enhance my intuitive and empathic abilities, and how can a small coven do the same with group exercises? So I would recommend anybody who wants to enhance their psychic or intuitive abilities, wants to work with the third eye. Doing third eye exercises can be very beneficial. So we have an episode on the third eye, and I will, maybe as I'm talking, I'll try to find it. I will also be doing another third eye episode probably pretty soon. But working with third eye exercises and just working to balance your third eye in general can be an important kind of first step. But the other thing that I also want to mention is the third eye is not the only chakra that's connected to our intuition. So sometimes we think it's the only chakra, and then we focus only on that one, and then we're confused why our psychic abilities are not increasing. when we're doing all this third eye work, right? And sometimes what it means is that we've forgotten that there are blockages below in some of the lower chakras. So I recommend looking at those lower chakras, looking at the solar plexus, thinking about your belief, yourself. Do you believe in your ability to be intuitive? Do you believe in, when intuitive messages come through, do you discount them? And if you feel like you struggle a little bit with that belief, working with your solar plexus can be helpful. Another, I'm just trying to find this third eye episode for you. Yes, here it is. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the chat, and anybody can go back and watch this. And like I said, I'll be doing another third eye episode in not too long from now. But at least this is going in the chat. So that video goes into some third eye exercises that you can do and other things you can do to strengthen your third eye. Another thing to think about is your root chakra. How grounded are you? When people are pretty ungrounded, then they're not going to be able to be as intuitive as they'd like. So there's an intimate connection between the third eye and the root chakra. So it can be helpful to do some root chakra work before you start your divination or your intuitive practices. Other things that you can do are like psychic strengthening exercises. So one of the exercises I like to do is to take a deck of, you can take a deck, just a deck of plain playing cards, but a deck of tarot cards or I generally use, but you could use oracle cards. But you try to find a specific card from the deck. So find the high priestess. So a lot of times when we're doing divination, we're just going to the deck and then we're just pulling out whatever is pulled out, right? But in this exercise, you specifically go looking for the high priestess, and you just do it over and over and over until you can find it. And eventually you get better at being intuitive about where that card is. So there's different exercises like that you can try. In groups, you can do the exercises together. You can do, so if you were trying to build strength in a coven around some of psychic abilities and intuitive strengthening, you could do the third eye exercises together. You could do some of the chakra work together. But you can also work on strengthening your visualization, your group visualization together. So like anything that you do to build camaraderie in a group is also going to strengthen the psychic awareness and the intuition of that group as well. So I hope that helps. And then Sam had another question. He says, how can we best practice communing with the spirits of nature and the afterlife? And so this is a great time of the year to be communing with the spirits of nature. And you can communicate with the spirits who've crossed through as well, though that's a little more tied to Samhain on the other side of the wheel. But communing with any spirits of any kind, we first want to set an intention. Sometimes people think, oh, that's like it's so simple that they discount it. But first setting that intention, like saying to the spirits, I am open and receptive to communing with you now. Ask the spirits what they want. So like I was talking earlier in the episode about sitting with a flower or sitting with a plant and closing your eyes and trying to breathe with it, or leaning your back against a tree and trying to breathe in and out in tune with that tree. And then beginning to ask that tree or the flower or any nature spirits around you, like, what do you want? What do you need? Do you have any messages for me? So just starting the dialogue and understanding that the answers don't always come through the way that we would expect. It's not always like an auditory voice that answers us. It can be signs and synchronicities around us, subtle movement out of the corner of your eye, things like that. So really like when you work with your chakras, like we were talking in the first part of your question, really starting to balance your energy, you're going to get better at noticing the messages that are all around you that are, you are actually being answered even when you think that you're not. Other things that, to strengthen your relationship with nature spirits is leaving offerings to them when in doubt. Water, milk can be a good offering, wine, honey, fruits, flowers, different things like that. But you can also ask the spirits, what do you want? Like my story of, asking the fairies outside what they want, and they wanted sand from Venice Beach. Setting aside a place on your altar to honor spirits, whether it's ancestors, spirits who crossed through the veils, or nature spirits of any kind. Setting aside that space or creating your own altar just dedicated to communing with those spirits. And then, like I said, being open to various forms of communication and how it can come through, not always in the way that we expect. But the other thing, too, is, to me, it always goes back to like, what are we doing to increase our spiritual evolution? Like, are we doing our energy work? Are we doing our shadow work? Are we releasing our blockages? Like, that's the foundation of all of it. And when we do that stuff, we will find that it just becomes naturally easier to commune with the spirits around us. So I hope that helps. And then finally, Tom had a question about how to best determine what is legitimate out there and what is just fluff. And so he's referring to, all of the information out there on paganism and witchcraft. And so I think that my best advice is, yes, I agree. There's a lot out there, a lot of sources with information that frankly, doesn't always look right to me. Looking for reputable sources, finding authors, major authors that you like, that you follow. They all have social media pages generally too. Go to their pages, get information from the reputable sources that you trust. Look at the people that they follow. They're probably following people that they think are reputable, and getting information from those people. Finding well-moderated groups like our Body, Mind, Witchcraft group. We spend a lot of time moderating the content. We try to only let through content that we feel, we trust, that we feel is true. If we notice that there's content that might have inaccuracies in it, we will take it down, or we won't let it through. So well-moderated groups like ours can be good sources, especially if they're led by people that you trust. Always important to check sources and information for yourself. Watching out for AI. It's not reached the level that it needs to be for people to be trusting it without questioning it at all. It's saying really crazy things sometimes. Like, if you try this, ask Google AI, what sign is the moon in, and sometimes it will tell you the right sign and sometimes it won't, and so it's got a long way to go. But watching out for information, if you sense that somebody's using AI sources, be careful, because there could be inaccuracies in it. And then again, at the very end of all of it, it all comes back to your own intuition. If it feels like the source is fluff, like you said, your intuition's probably telling you the right thing. It probably isn't something that's a value to you. So using your intuition, you'll get better at knowing what's the fluff and what are really the legitimate sources. So I hope that helps. And I'm going to go back into the chat, see if there are any other questions here for me. Let's see. People are talking about having guilt of falling off of practice. Yeah. So again, guilt is rarely going to be guilt is an emotion that serves a purpose. If we didn't have the ability to feel guilt, we would probably do some bad things, right? But the guilt helps us understand, what are right or wrong things to do. But on the other side, the guilt can become insidious, and it can make us feel like we're bad people for not being on our practice. So releasing that guilt is so important, especially if we want to move forward with our practice and our evolution. Taliesin said, I was gone for over a decade. Yeah, people will leave the craft, they'll leave the path for long periods of time. And try not to feel guilty about it when you do. Amy said, I've been in an ebb and flow, but the last couple of days I've done the grounding tree meditation, and after taking the dogs out. And that's probably helping you feel a little bit more grounded. Kurt said, are the crossroads good for this time of year also? Crossroads can be used at any time of year. I don't know if they don't specifically come up as something aligned or connected to summer solstice, but the crossroads are good for workings at any time of year. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about what's coming up. If anybody has any final questions or comments, put them in the chat. So next week on 6/24, we're going to be right at the dark moon at that time. So we are going to do another episode on some more dark goddesses to work with in our shadow work. Probably like 6 or 8 weeks ago, I did an episode on dark goddesses, and there were so many that came up. And there were some that I didn't get a chance to talk about. Off the top of my head, I can't remember which ones they were, but I know that we'll be talking about Nyx. I know we're going to talk about Lilith, and I can't remember any of the others, but we will be talking about some that we did not talk about in that other episode. I also have a money magic workshop that's coming up soon. It's going to be a free workshop. In it, we will be doing a money magic spell together. And then that's going to kick off the opening of my Demystifying Witchcraft course, which up until now has really only been available to those in our Shadow Seekers membership, but will be available to the public after the workshop. Or after that money magic class. So that course, look for that as we get closer to it. More information will come out about it. Leave a heart or a thumbs up somewhere in the video. It helps us get this out to the feed of more people. Subscribe to our Body Mind Witchcraft YouTube channel if you have not subscribed yet. And that way you will not miss a single episode in the future. Now, if you have not signed up for the Witch's Guide to Shadow Work yet, I'm going to drop a link in the chat where you can sign up for it. And also, if you have any suggestions for future episodes, I am always looking for some new suggestions on topics that you would like to know more about that we can feature in future Ask Aislins. All right, well, I'm going to sign off for tonight. As always, it's been great spending Tuesday night with you guys who are live. And if you're not with us live, you can leave your questions too, and I will answer those later after the live feed. All right, until next time, blessed be and happy Litha, everybody. I hope you have a great, wonderful start to Litha season and a great summer solstice. Blessed be.